The Assassin's Creed franchise has changed a lot in the last decade, largely in part due to declining interest in the formula that put this franchise on the map, thus brought upon a reinvention with the RPG-light formula that draws a lot of its inspiration from the work CD Projekt Red did on The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt in 2015. Say what you will about these newer games, but they have been sales behemoths, and money talks, so Ubisoft have gone all in on this direction, even if it means putting the character's story and parkour stealth-focused approach to the sidelines in favor of non-stop action, more player freedom, and larger-than-life open worlds. The assassin part of this franchise doesn't really matter too much anymore, and I suppose that makes some sense when you're on the 14th entry in the franchise with no end in sight. Fortunately, Ubisoft with the last entry pivoted from a story DLC to standalone game that really leaned into what these games used to be. And while I still found that experience lacking in many ways, Mirage's mission design and approach to open world interactivity stuck with me, and awoken the realization of just how much Ubisoft has downgraded various gameplay systems in order to fit their RPG-light formula. Don't get me wrong, I have found some enjoyment out of these newer games, but largely I have walked away feeling dismayed with content that just feels very disjointed. Origins at the very least felt somewhat refreshing at the time. Odyssey went off the rails, barely being connected to the franchise, but also with some extremely fun gameplay mechanics. Valhalla raids were cool, but the game was just endless with a narrative that never really came together. So that's why with Shadows my excitement was already not really there. Marketing indicated this was more the same, except that the twist with this one was that we were going to be able to play as a shinobi and a samurai. On paper, sounds like a fun idea. Execution-wise, it didn't work at all. This is actually my core complaint with Shadows. Nawe is a fantastic protagonist to control, Yasuke not so much. She can parkour around a fortress, grapple up and down and around when needed, quietly and quickly traverse environments, and even has some extra flash or pizzazz with different types of flips as she moves from one rooftop to another. He, though, can't climb much. He moves slower, he's louder, he can smash through doors and move heavy objects. Best way to showcase the difference between the two is when they try the leap of faith. Nawe does a smooth jump while Yasuke clumsily jumps into the pile of hay and plops on out. They're strikingly different, which would be okay if the decision didn't feel so restrictive and limiting to the core gameplay experience. Now, Yasuke's brute size does come with other advantages. Particularly, he enjoys more power, more health, and he can take more damage. Surrounded by a group of enemies, utilizing his dominant strength to break enemy defensive postures can be satisfying, if not a bit too easy. I'd actually argue in combat he is overpowered and surprisingly fast with his movement and dodges, which truly conflicts with everything outside of that with him. There's a lack of balance here, which is frustrating, but it does make a ton of sense that he is only able to use heavy weaponry. However, Ubisoft does take this a step further by having it that all ranged weapons are exclusive to Yasuke, which I absolutely hated. It's just dumb. At least with these recent games and the Warriors Creed that this franchise has become, Eivor, Bayek, or Cassandra Alexios had full access to an arsenal that supported whichever playstyle they wished to embrace, but in Shadows, to differentiate the two protagonists, I assume, Ubisoft made it that the only weapons Yasuke and Nawe both can enjoy is basically a katana, and it drove me nuts because it truly limits one's freedom in gameplay. A better way to put it is that in any of the previous games you can slowly traverse a building, assassinate targets from above, and then switch to a bow and arrow to take out enemies further out. In this game, that option is taken away and is exclusive to a character that can't climb most walls and is just not fun to use in stealth, and really not meant for that. He's intended to run through the front door and create chaos. Now, this dual protagonist system is further problematic in the fact that Ubisoft had to design the game's missions and world around these two playstyles. So what this means is that this too feels limited. I'm sure from a lore and logic standpoint, some of this was obviously going to be an issue, like you can't have Yasuke doing a trailing mission or hiding in a crowd of people as he's slow, but also his presence is very much felt with him being the only black guy in Japan at the time. So the way Ubisoft worked around this was avoiding a lot of the predicaments and things you would expect in an Assassin's Creed game in favor of, I swear, 90% of the big missions having you infiltrate a heavily guarded fortress to assassinate a target or find an object. You either do it the quiet way or the loud way. It also feels extremely scripted, with even animus walls popping up if, say, Nawe takes a pathway around a castle that Ubisoft doesn't want you to take for reasons. The lacking variety becomes noticeable as the game's main narrative pushes forward. This is why a game like Mirage is a nice wake-up call for what this franchise still can be. And you still see tastes of that, especially in the early hours of Shadows, which are almost exclusively you playing as Nawe. But as the game opens up, that's where things accelerate in the wrong direction. And there's really no way to avoid this because of the approach Ubisoft took of having two protagonists that feel and play different. It's just that I never get the feeling that it enhances the experience at all. Even narratively, I found this underwhelming. The early hours, as I said, focus mostly on Nawe, and it gives you an introduction to the conflict at the heart of this game, as well as a motivation for, yes, as usual, the chart full of enemies that you need to track down and take out. Similar to Valhalla, this game has you traveling to a new province and being met to some sort of conflict striking the region, and of course we are here to bring order and peace back. It's a cycle that feels repetitive, and I just can't say I felt connected with much of these stories. You enter said new region, meet with a few forgettable characters, some sort of conflict is revealed, do a quest or 2 or 3 with them, big bad guy is taken out, and then you move on. Rinse and repeat. Some of these characters' journey with our protagonist doesn't stop there, as a few appear later on, and or we have some side quests to interact with them again, but it just doesn't have that emotional connection I so desperately want these games to have. Maybe the structure of these games are to blame, but seeing death and devastation strike characters I just met doesn't do anything for me, and there's a lot of that here. And this isn't really an Assassin's Creed problem, but a Ubisoft problem. Most of their recent open world single player games run into this wall, and they have not been able to figure out how to get past it. I would assume having like 13 studios and so many different people involved in the creative process hurts the cohesion of themes and stories that Ubisoft wants to tell with these games. Since I would say the early 2010s, they have just done, in my eyes, a terrible job creating enjoyable characters and narratives. It's been a lot of one-dimensional personalities that feel like they are there solely to exposition dump on us and or serve as a connector to your next objective. I could not sit here and name 5 characters from any of the past couple AC games, and even with Shadows I often was rolling my eyes at the dry dialogue that Ubisoft crafted up. Immersing players and getting them to care is not an easy task, but maybe developing your games in studios like a McDonald's is part of the problem. So unfortunately, Shadows does actually have some good quality moments that are brought down by the sheer amount of crap in the way of that. I would say the game has a solid start. The first 5 or so hours I enjoyed, and then when you get to the open world and full control of both Yasuke and Nawe, it struggled to keep me invested. That would be the next 30 hours. But before we continue, this video is brought to you by War Thunder, the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, allowing players to control over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships of 10 major nations with a wide array of new and iconic options. In War Thunder, you can expect tense and engaging combat, detailed vehicles, realistic visuals, and authentic sound that immerses you as you take the helm of the most powerful machines of our time. For fans of military history and those that just love high-quality optimized PvP experiences, join a community of over 70 million players for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and now mobile devices. Expansive customization options, intricate vehicle damage models, and 3 distinct modes, each catering to a specific playstyle, War Thunder awaits you on the battlefield to take part in the action. Do so by following my link in the description or pinned comment down below to sign up and get started now. Mobile players will have their own unique link below. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months also receive a massive bonus pack across PC and console that includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive Vehicle Decorator Eagle Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. It's available for a limited time only, so jump in today. The game starts around the late 1500s and focuses on real historical figures like Oda Nobunaga and the many other clans and outsiders that were around during this time. It's a time of war, and you feel that whether you're in Iga or Kyoto. I will say the game's storytelling definitely is a lot slower than I think some are prepared for, especially when it comes to cutscenes and the shitload of times that you're following a character. Ubisoft writing just doesn't create enough intrigue to keep you invested, and too many times I really just wanted characters to get to the fucking point. But they didn't. It does pick up a bit towards the end, but it felt in my mind too little too late. Both Nawe and Yasuke have their own character storylines, which dive into their past. Nawe's relationship with her father is very much at the center of this game's story and probably one of the few bright spots in terms of story content. Nawe is an exceptional character, while Yasuke is just meh. His outsider identity is explored a decent amount, but doesn't feel truly realize most of the experience, and much of Yasuke's backstory doesn't come until very late in the game, which I felt was an odd decision, but very much so it does have a place in the Assassin's Creed lore, and you do eventually understand why Ubisoft wanted a foreigner to play a role in the game. It's just that the pieces don't fit in this puzzle. The pacing of these story missions and when they occur are not linear and are at war with the open world formula and other conflicts the game is throwing at you and trying to get you to care about. I will give credit where it is deserved, and Nawe is an example of, again, Ubisoft being able to create compelling protagonists. It's just that they never realize their true potential and are let down by scripts that are all over the place. Yasuke also isn't necessarily bad, just a bit too bland for my liking until the final few hours add depth that I wanted long before. It's content that leans into the strengths of this franchise and just shows how Ubisoft has struggled mightily to expand past it, like the Order of the Ancients or the Cult of Cosmos and now the Shinbakufu. I probably butchered that pronunciation, but just none of these secretive organizations compare to where this franchise roots began, and I think even Ubisoft knows that. Oh, also, if you become a bit exhausted by the list of targets, this game goes into overdrive with it. There's this group, that group, then there's pirates, then a secret organization, then another one. It's just a lot. And with the game level gating regions, it does require you to take on these many assassination missions to earn precious experience and level up. There's a wall that hits right around the time you get to the third or so region, in which you really are pushed to engage with side content, but also with your skills. This time around, to unlock further skill branches, you need knowledge points, which are largely earned by doing repetitive busy work. You'll come upon a lot of shrines, and just about every single one allows you to find scrolls or pray at them to earn a knowledge point. Other activities like horse archery, treasure hunting, kata, and meditation also add to this. It's not the most annoying thing in the world, but for someone like myself, who was already feeling disconnected from the boring regional conflicts, this added further irritation, mostly because of how forced it felt. And of the skills, Ubisoft does do a decent enough job incorporating enough options and trees for whatever weapon you're progressing with. Nawe again is just stealth focused with lighter weapons as options, with some cool gadgets that fits her shinobi identity, while Yasuke has heavy and ranged options, with him being able to exclusively use a gun with the teppo, which I would say is pretty fun to use, but does have a slow reload and limited ammo. Combat in the game overall is just fine. Well, the feeling of it. Stealth is probably the area where it got the most enhancements. Things like eagle vision are back, although there is no bird that you can summon to overlook a location this time around. That's more so something that you can do yourself, along with spotting where valuables or objectives are. But Ubisoft has added the function to go prone and also extinguish lights to hide in the shadows and take out a target. Previous games would have enemy AI easily notice you, but this one, again, improves on this front. There's also level design that leans into this area, with Nawe slowly going under floorboards to get where she needs to go. It's a nice touch. Both characters have a light and heavy attack that can be spammed, along with special abilities that fit with whatever weapon class that you are using. Like Yasuke with his katana has a cool super fast slash ability and also something similar to the Spartan kick. Nawe has an ability with a katana that slashes an enemy repeatedly within seconds, along with a stealth focused ability that slows time and allows you to pop out of the shadows and assassinate a target. Each of these abilities have their own upgrades, and their effectiveness improves as you progress your specific skill tree. I would say there is no big surprises and mind-bending combat changes from beginning to end. Enemy AI at least feels more reactive in this game, and will notice you if you come out of a bush and go back. They will then investigate, and even in some scenarios, if they are already suspicious of you being around them, they can block an assassination attempt, blowing your cover. It's an improvement, at the very least, over some of the prior games in this franchise in which this area felt dumb as bricks. There is also supposed to be consequences for if you create too much noise and chaos in a region, the wanted system, which has all enemies and guards strike you if they see you, but this almost never triggered at all. Maybe this is bugged, but I'm not entirely sure, and the same could be said about the amount of civilians that you can kill without getting a desynchronization warning. Whenever in an enemy stronghold, you can pretty much attack most civilians or servants within these areas, especially the ones panicking. It almost is necessary, which maybe that was intended, but probably not, considering the outcry surrounding this game pre-release in regards to response respecting Japanese culture. Just a bit odd. Now, combat does also feature a ton of finishers, maybe too much. Like seeing Yasuke or Naoe behead an enemy is something I probably saw happen a few hundred times. The black and white screen with red blood spewing across it is also a cool effect, but not even in the ballpark of when a similar game of Ghost of Tsushima did something similar when you became the ghost. That moment is an example of something modern Ubisoft could only dream of, as the fear of the Mongols and the build-up and effectiveness of Jin Sakai's overwhelming power. You just don't have any moments in combat like that here in Shadows. Maybe it's unrealistic to think Ubisoft could match up to what Sucker Punch created with Tsushima a few years ago, but looking back on gameplay after beating Shadows, there's just a night and day difference with really everything. But Shadows definitely does have some fun abilities to unlock and advance, but your combat prowess, at least with Naoe, it can be felt in those early hours if you don't keep up with having a weapon with good damage, or invest in good gear items, which has been minimized a little bit down to just a main outfit, a piece of headwear, and a trinket. I ended up monitoring my weapon stats and made sure to keep up with upgrading them with every other level increase, but even with, say, Yasuke, I barely concentrated on his weapons, and he was still demolishing enemies. I think that says more about the lacking balance in this regard. It's not like I was playing the game on story mode. The vast majority of my time was spent on normal difficulty, but managing over upgrades and customizing your weapons with special stat-related engravings all happens at your very own hideout. Like Valhalla, you're once again building a settlement, although this time around, it didn't feel as important. Like first few hours, I collected resources from looting a few bandit and military camps and upgraded the more necessary buildings like my forge, but after that I barely touched it. Ubisoft obviously wants this to be a big part of the game, as a lot of the side characters eventually make their way here and have further quest lines for you to take on here. There's tons of options to decorate and move things around to your heart's desire. There's also contracts and various gameplay systems you manage over and upgrade here, like the potential of your scouts and forge. You can also travel the open world and stealthily take paintings of animals to unlock murals of them, and the animals as, I guess, pets. Further items can be looted all around the open world. There's a decent amount of layers to it, but in terms of story importance, it seemed mostly as an afterthought, and that's personally how I viewed it. You can recruit allies to your hideout, the more fleshed out characters of the game, most of which you can form a meaningful or romantic relationship with. Some are better than others. The further advantage of recruiting them is that they can be used in combat as an ability. Upgrades come further when going to your hideout and purchasing better abilities for said ally, but this too is something I largely ignored, a system that isn't fully realized due to the unbalanced nature of the game, but at the very least it does offer a bit more variety to gameplay and adds some noticeable faces to your hideout. I also love how there's a shinobi similar in size and stature to Naoe that utilizes a teppo, something she for reasons can't touch. But our hideouts are also the one place where both Naoe and Yasuke interact or are seen together, because outside of cutscenes, you never are side by side. It's always you going solo. Like a lot of the main story stuff has you conducting a mission and giving you the option to play as Naoe or Yasuke, with the other seemingly just fucking off away to take care of a different, supposedly necessary task. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes not really. Like one mission, Naoe and Yasuke both are in a cutscene confronting an enemy, and then the choice of who you wish to fight as pops up, and the other just seemingly disappears. It's just very odd and noticeable. Dialogue options is also here, and it very much so gives you the illusion often of choice. Like certainly there are a few moments in which a character can be killed or spared, but a lot of the time the responses that you can give are angry or slightly inconvenienced. They just don't add much to anything. And there is a few pivotal story situations that I explored if these options led to some crazy different route, but I was disappointed to find out that Ubisoft just adds a fight that gets cut off to reach the original conclusion that they assumed players would pick. It's lazy in my opinion, and in one instance I made the wrong choice to see if the game actually made me feel the consequences of it, But nope, Ubisoft's writers immediately then have another character point out the choice I should have made and make it for me. So Shadows really struggles to keep my interest and attention, and this also is extended to how exploration is handled here, as it's very much so you stick to the dirt road and try not to divert much. This is an exclusive issue with this Japanese setting because of the sheer amount of mountainous ranges. In ancient Egypt, a lot of that environment is flat. Ancient Greece, you had a ship that you could use as you made your way around the many islands and locations. locations. Valhalla also enjoyed a flatter open world, but also had your riverboat to traverse around, so certainly a unique challenge of a more vertical open world that Ubisoft doesn't really try to address. Instead, I just learned it the hard way, as going off-road and trying to get to a destination quicker often ended up with me getting stuck in a tree, falling down a steep incline, and/or unable to jump on top of rocks. It was a mess. Something that could be avoided with being able to use a grapple hook on above objects that aren't just a building, or better parkour mechanics, or maybe a glider, or just something. Part of me believes they didn't want to introduce further mechanics in this regard, as this would probably have to be a Nawe exclusive mechanic, and they didn't want players to feel dissuaded from using Yasuke, who again moves very slow. Regardless, nothing is here to redress this, and Ubisoft merely tells you to stick to the main road. The guided path that they have as a feature for getting to a new location is very much needed, as there's a lot of twisty roads and ways to get lost. That's that. And the truth is, most of the parts of the environment that you can interact with are the ones that Ubisoft has designed, like being able to jump on a tree will be marked in a bright yellow. The indicator is literally made as blatant as possible. One of the big new mechanics that Ubisoft has added with this entry is the scout system. This is a big part of tracking down quests and acquiring materials. This scout system is, I assume, Ubisoft's response to criticism that they received after Elden Ring released, and people made fun of the design of their games and how there's no sense of discovery or thinking with finding where you need to go. So with your scouts, with every single quest, you usually have some hints with where to go, and using your world map to send these scouts to find where the quest specifically is. You only have a certain amount of opportunities to get this right, but typically the hints are very obvious with where you need to go. And even if you use all your scouts and can't send any, you can either reload for in-game cash, change the season, or just go to the specific location and look for the highlighted blue objective marker. The scout system is just not fun. It does nothing to better exploration, really just feels like a chore after a while, and yes, Ubisoft does offer an option to completely ignore this system in the game's menu. I understand their intention with trying to add a little bit more layers to exploration, but this mostly does the opposite, and has you barely end up interacting with the locations and instead sitting in a map menu playing Where's Waldo. And that does take away from seeing these locations and all their beauty, because Ubisoft did a solid job creating a war-torn country, and you see that throughout your journey through Japan. Beautifully authentic temples, lush landscapes, and massive lived-in cities and towns. There's a lot of that here. The environmental look and architecture is one of the big compliments I can give the game, along with the seasonal system, which allows you to see these locations in all 4 seasons and different weather conditions. The game was also decently optimized for my PC. I was playing with a 3080 Ti and an older Intel CPU, but didn't run into too many performance issues outside of a few noticeable FPS dips when you arrived to bigger cities like Kyoto. But other than that, it ran pretty smoothly. The only real issue on this front would be some visual bugs here and there, with lots of pop-in with the environment and some lighting inconsistencies, especially when you find yourself in darker regions. But overall, I'd say the extra time Ubisoft gave themselves here went to good use. I'd also say, compared to another recent Ubisoft open world game, facial animation is far better, but still lacking in certain interactions. This is a cutscene heavy game, and while you do get some expressions conveying Nawe and Yasuke's feelings, various other characters are a bit lacking and can look a bit wooden in their eyes. It's still an upgrade over what was presented recently in Star Wars Outlaws, but definitely nowhere near the industry leaders of, say, like Naughty Dog and Rockstar. But it is more than serviceable, and the problems with characters not expressing enough feeling, I just think is more of a script problem more than anything else. But I just wish there was more I could say positively about this formulaic game. It's just that the more grounded approach with less mythical nonsense is nice to see, but also the game just never grabbed me at all. Also, I'm specifically speaking to the base game and not the microtransaction store, which yes, features some wacky cosmetics, as well as the ability to buy in-game currency and tools. Make of that as you will, but you know my feelings on stuff like that in single-player games. Shadows, though, does have a few very nice moments, but this is a long game, and I felt more often than not bored out of my mind doing the same activities over and over again. Even the few sequences that you have something different, like a chase sequence, the game literally just stops it and moves forward, even if you really didn't succeed at the task. It's a lot of small stuff like this which grew into an irritation and an audible laugh at how restrictive this design is. It's the illusion of player freedom which defines this game. It is also worth mentioning this is the first title making use of the Animus Hub, which connects some recent games as a place where you can access all of them in this menu. It's a weird, mostly barren system that does have an item shop and battle pass that can't be advanced with real world money for now. Like, you can earn this specific new currency by taking on challenges in game or by finding it as you explore. If the intent isn't there now, it seems like at some point it was, and maybe that still is the long-term goal. It's the only thing that makes sense for why this is being introduced, and for a company in financial trouble, I'm suspicious of things like this. So look, having a Ronin pop out of the bushes and fight you is something to do. Same with raiding castles and camps, or giving an offering to earn some easy experience at the hundreds of mini shrines that make up this open world. The game offers a lot of that. Even for longtime fans of the franchise, there's tons of story content and new lore developments to discover. That's more than enough for a lot of people, but for myself, I just wasn't having fun. And I think there's just far better options on the table right now. Like, while this game isn't anywhere near as controversial with how it was treated pre-release, it still ends up being pretty damn offensive with how it takes my time for granted. It's just another repetitive open world with silly, cartoonishly bad, predictable twists and reveals that cease right before they get interesting from a company that has lost the plot on crafting quality narrative content that makes you care. And it's a damn shame, because Nawe is an enjoyable protagonist. She's full of a lot of heart, maybe my favorite in years, with a great acting performance, which elevates bland writing and dialogue that I often just wanted to skip. But even her and Yasuke cannot escape the reality that the duo experiment performed on them does not work at all. Combat-wise, it's unnecessarily restrictive and unbalanced. Story-wise, it's a few solid moments in a 30 to 40 hour-ish main story, and that's just not good enough. In recent years, we've also been spoiled with some fantastic open-world feudal Japan games, and I just don't think Shadows holds a candle to, say, Ghost of Tsushima or Nioh or Sekiro. It's bloated, it's boring, it feels restrictive, an open world that feels repetitive, and worst of all, I just wasn't having fun. This is a game that I can't recommend, especially at a time where a few Game of the Year contenders just launched in the last month or so, games that Ubisoft moved away from for good reason. There are a number of improvements here with gameplay such as stealth and parkour that is the best it's felt in years, but it doesn't make up for the many shortcomings that plague this experience. Shadows maybe should have stayed in the shadows. And before we do wrap things up, I want to again thank the sponsor of the video, War Thunder. Check it out now for free on PC, console, and mobile devices, and use my link in the pinned comment or video description to get started. New players or those who haven't played for 6 months also receive a massive bonus pack across PC and console, including multiple premium vehicles, in-game currency, and more. But anyway, what are your feelings on Assassin's Creed Shadows? Do you plan to check it out or not? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.